and what it really takes to lead. Now, here's Jennifer Bardo, Kelly Chandler, and Michael Chandler.
Welcome back. This is Jennifer Bardo, joined by Mike Chandler and Kelly Chandler on Elavate and Lead. And we are going to do a quick recap about our last episode last week with my uncle, Dr. Mike Bly. He was our secret guest that we got to have the honor to highlight. And he was super exciting just from a personal relationship and seeing, him in a different light rather than family, but more about his career. It was pretty interesting. What were your thoughts?
I thought he was amazing. I feel like he's my uncle now too. Honestly, he was such a breath of fresh air. And he's one of those people that when you speak with them, they have just that wisdom that comes with time and experience, and something that I felt, was very inspirational listening to him and his path. It really hit home for me personally, based on a lot of things we've been through in our lives. So he was a joy, and I appreciate the time and energy he put into the episode.
Yeah, his story about the mental fortitude that it took to overcome, call it something he didn't expect in his career, being removed from a leadership position that he didn't quite see coming, was I think happens to a lot of people, right? And sometimes it happens for all the wrong reasons. Sometimes it's politically charged. You're not aligned with the right person. Sometimes it's a timing thing. You're no longer a fit. But it was interesting to hear his story. And obviously, I think that still sticks with him in terms of getting up every day and being charged with, moving forward. So it helped inspire him, but it also tore him down a little bit. So actually had a listener reach out to me that someone up in Wisconsin that was like 2 thumbs up for a Wisconsin native. So kind of interesting. Awesome. Yeah. So
I just loved hearing his little rebel spirit, but he's so humble and so talented.
So humble. And you got to see him over the weekend.
I just saw him yesterday.
Okay,
we were celebrating my uncle's birthday, and he's like, make sure you don't say anything mean.
Oh, no.
He's like, you got to be nice to the family member on radio. I was like, okay.
No, there was nothing. He was perfect, honestly. And I'm so glad you introduced him to the show and our listeners, because he had a lot of wisdom to share. So, anything exciting over the weekend? You were in Florida.
I was on a girls' trip. Yeah. I've been gone since Thursday, just right now getting acclimated. It's hard to get back into the groove.
And you said that was a last minute thing, huh?
It was last minute because my custody schedule switched, and then all of a sudden it ended up working out. And I was like, Ash, I am going.
Good for you. You look like you're having quite a nice time.
I've known those girls for decades, 2 decades. And my friend Ash, we've been friends since we were 9. So,
you can be yourself 1,000%.
Oh, she knows everything. There's nothing to hide.
Yeah.
he came back. I'm still trying to figure out
I don't know
why
why
you came back from the Emerald Coast.
Don't know why, but it was gorgeous. I mean, it was sunny every day. It was just beautiful.
Yeah.
So
very nice. And Mike and I actually had the pleasure of celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary yesterday. It's crazy how fast time flies. And last week we went back down to the Arch and the old cathedral to get some pictures taken, because that's where we got married. So that was kind of fun to get back down there after so many years. We don't get downtown a ton, so that was kind of fun.
Sweet. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. That's awesome. All right, switching gears, we are going to talk a little bit about our latest offering called the Monthly Brief and Toolkit. This is a new subscription offering to our listeners who are busy. You all are busy leaders out there. And what we do is we condense the prior month's episodes and boil those down to about a 15-minute audio. And we pair that with a 3-page toolkit where we take the highlighted lessons learned, whether they're professional or personal, and we combine those with trends that are occurring right here in our area, in the St. Louis area and region. So last month, we actually featured 10 leaders across 5 different episodes. And the theme that we pulled together from those episodes was courage, reinvention, and crossing boundaries. And I think if you go out to the website, which right now we just have it housed on Mike's website under michaeldavidchandler.com, you can request a free sample to take a look at what this is all about. And then you can subscribe, whether that be monthly or annually. And I think you'll really like what we've pulled together. It's extremely unique and kind of hyper local. You can also reach out to us via email at elevateandleadinfo@gmail.com or message us on LinkedIn if you'd like to learn more. So I encourage you all to go out there and take a look. We're going to launch August here soon as well. And we're excited to share that coming up soon. You two want to say anything about the brief or toolkit?
I think it's awesome because, I mean, it's really rare people have an hour to sit down and actually listen to these stories. So I think this is a really cool opportunity for them to have a recap and really gain the wisdom from all of these incredible guests that we get to have on our show.
Ditto. I agree. No, I mean, there's work that goes into it for sure. It's, getting the Midwest and St. Louis themes pulled together and trends that are going on in the business. And it's interesting how they correlate to some of our guests that are on in healthcare, in the industrial space and manufacturing. There's a lot of stuff going on in St. Louis around growth, whether that's in infrastructure, roadways, manufacturing, education, healthcare, so we do our best to curate what we can find and tie that back to our guests' knowledge and insights. So take a listen. And if you want that free one, we do actually offer one out there that Kelly mentioned, and we're happy to share that with you.
Yeah, it's like a Cliff Note version of what's happening.
Exactly.
I love it. New subscriber with a 2.5 hour drive ahead of me today. So looking forward to catching up on them.
Love it.
That is right. And you're going to hear from Chip in just a few minutes here after we get through our Ask and Elevate. He's our special guest today.
That was his voice.
That was his voice. Super
Very special.
That's right. Very interesting background. Definitely holds the title of grit and perseverance and traversing different things. So some exciting conversations coming up here in just a few minutes. All right. So we are on to Ask and Elevate. And I know that Ryan and I have got to get after our jingle for this at some point, and we'll figure it out, whatever that little Ask and Elevate jingle will be. But we'll get something figured out. Just to remind everybody, anybody that's new on Ask and Elevate, you can do so by asking a question, putting that out to us through our email at elevateandleadinfo@gmail.com. Or you can jump out on LinkedIn if you prefer and find us at Elevate and Lead @LouInfo and drop us a direct message there. We will do our best to get your question teed up and actually do our best to answer, I guess. So this question actually came from a listener, Sarah, out of Chesterfield, Missouri. And her question actually stemmed back from our conversation with Yemi and the power of relationships and leadership. Her question is, how do you build authentic relationships when you're pressed for time and stretched thin as a leader? Jen, why don't you take the first answer to that question? Your background in networks and bringing people together probably has the most relevance here, but what do you think?
I think you just got to be you, right? Because once you have the right energy and you're in alignment with who you are, you're going to attract people that are similar to you and have similar interests and energy. And then you're going to have authentic conversations and then actually see where you can collaborate. So for me, it's just like I show up as myself every day and this is me. So people that like me will like me, but if they don't, they don't, Mm-hmm. And then that's when true collaboration can happen. But I think that's when you find similar people, when you show up as yourself. You don't put on your shield. You don't put on this front that you're something that you're not. You're just you.
Yeah, agree. I mean, being very transparent and, knowing the probably 15 to 20 people we've had on the show since June, everybody's been super transparent and authentic. And I think those that are more authentic and transparent help each other grow. So I think that's important. I would say that on the question about taking the time to build authentic relationships, it's hard. You're in the middle of it. You're leading, you're doing your job. You're probably running kids back and forth or living your personal life. And so when do you have time to mix those things in? I think it is finding one or two key relationships that drive outcomes for you. And sometimes that's outside of your current area. For example, when I left Citigroup back in 2008 and went into the entrepreneurial space with a bunch of co-founders and entrepreneurs, I was introduced by a third party, a CEO of a software company that we were working with to implement at Citigroup. And our relationship became strong enough that he referred me to the CEO and the leadership team and the M&A teams of this company. Next thing you know, I'm in Chicago 3 weeks later talking to them about a different path outside of corporate. And it was one part about taking that opportunity to having the relationship with the CEO of iRise at the time and essentially going out on a limb to chase that door. I think that's important because a lot of people are risk adverse. They don't take that extra time to jump into an opportunity or discussion. I could have turned it down and been like, yeah, I'm at Citi. I'm okay. I'm doing well. I'm at a VP level. I don't need to move, but something in me said, go out and take that chance. And I think finding those 2 or 3, not off the cuff, but intentional relationships with people that might stretch you outside of where you are currently, can go a long way. So, I think you got to find those couple of opportunities and relationships. So
I love that. And before we go to Kelly, I was talking to Mike last night, and he was saying there was someone that actually reached out to him, and she realized during his episode that she never opens doors. So now she's going to be opening those doors. So we're making an impact, so
wonderful.
Jump out and be fearless.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And then for someone who is more naturally risk averse, I find some of that to be very exhausting. And what I love about groups like yours, Jennifer, you can go to these events that it's almost like speed network. It's not speed networking, but it does give you an opportunity to have several people together in the room. And it's during work hours also. And a lot of these, right?
I do that intentionally because I never want to take away from family. I'll never do a happy hour. It'll never be an evening event. Yeah, the gala, that's an exception, right?
Sure. That's one. That's a big deal.
But it's always lunch hours. So people can have real conversations.
Well, and you can, hopefully work is fine with that. I would think that your workplace of work would promote networking and visibility within the community. And that's what I do love about
Thank you.
groups
With
like
real
yours.
leaders, right?
Yeah.
It was fun.
and it's very cross-functional. It's not like you're going to a birds of a feather session for a bunch of accountants at an accounting function.
Right.
And nothing's wrong with that at all, right? But
that's
again, you're stuck in that sphere of influence, and you're there with everyone that you know already, or it's in your strength, your core area. Getting into something like grid is super interesting because you got leaders from
all industries,
every walk of life and size.
I think that's where real innovation happens, right? And when you're authentic and you're yourself, then you can find the synergies and the connections from people of all different walks of life.
Yes. And that is a common theme with many of our cross-collaborative guests we've had on, that's where the true innovation does happen. So that's definitely in line with that.
Absolutely. All right, Sarah. Well, thank you. Thank you for the question. I hope we gave you a little bit of insight there. And again, we encourage our listeners to submit questions, and we will do our best to pull it into Ask and Elevate. We've also talked about even doing some leadership trivia. So if we come up dry on a question, we might interject a little leadership trivia to test Jen and Ryan and Kelly, because I'll be the one asking the trivia.
That's easy.
You three will be the one
Ryan, I see
figuring
you
out.
sitting back in your chair.
Yeah.
And you're talking about St. Louis leadership.
St. Louis leadership
right?
trivia.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and there's no use of ChatGPT or Google or anything during those sessions, but we'll see how that goes.
This might actually be a trivia I might win.
That's right. You could.
I may have to hit up Rockio and learn how to set up the trivia thing, because Hot Take Central, the show before you guys, they do a trivia, like sports trivia, like I think Thursdays and Wednesdays.
Fun.
So
Cool.
Okay.
I can try to figure that out.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. All right. Well, Jen, let's take it over to Chip. Why don't you give us the introduction and get started on our special interview?
So that mystery voice that you heard was Chip Smith. He's an incredible leader in our community. He was actually in the last anthology of Grit, Successful Entrepreneurs with Grit. He has highlighted being a serial entrepreneur. Currently, he's a co-founder and principal of Greenleaf Capital Partners, and he has a diverse background, which we're going to dive into. But I mean, he's a lawyer, a former lawyer, entrepreneur, and investor. So, Chip, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself to our guests?
Sure. And sorry about that. There probably should have been some big bold letters here that special guest is not supposed to talk.
No.
Breaking the rules.
Yeah. Sorry about that. No, but Chip Smith, St. Louis native, as you said, and thanks very much for the introduction, and thanks for being here. For sure, a unique experience, much like the book or the chapter that I contributed for Jennifer. But as you all know, Jennifer's a remarkable person, great entrepreneur, great connector, lots of energy. So I was very excited and happy to have participated in that. So started my career practicing law, but kind of knew going in that that's not how I wanted to build my career. So call myself a recovering attorney. I think it was in law school when I saw an article that 70+% of attorneys are not satisfied with their career or their work-life balance. And I kind of had an idea going into law school. I didn't want to make a career, but I think seeing that kind of a statistic really cemented that for me. So probably overused adjectives, but also like to say I'm an aspiring entrepreneur. I've always wanted to be my own boss. Kind of through my evolution of age, it's probably been for different reasons. Started out with probably just wanted to make the most money or be my own boss, but it's kind of evolved into now I want to kind of make impact. So that's what's been driving some of my more recent career moves.
That's really cool. Well, one of the things that I learned about you during that chapter was that you work for NASA. What's this about?
So super fascinated with the cosmos. That was actually a political appointee job
Cool.
out in DC, working for the administrator at the time, Dan Golden. Remarkable leader, really amazing position. Got to meet with some astronauts, sit in on some astronaut debriefings. My friends like to joke that I was the space monkey. I probably would have been. I definitely was not a rocket scientist, but really, and it kind of perspective is very important to me. And NASA really kind of helped solidify how insignificant we as a human race really are. And there's lots of things that I don't like to see, that I think if people would zoom out and maybe, take a little bit bigger, broader perspective, might have a significant impact on some changes.
I love that. So thinking about a significant impact and some big pivots, what were some transformative experience that you've experienced during your career journey?
So the first one was leaving my kind of solid, comfortable employment and starting Greenleaf Capital Partners. And that took, I've been wanting to do it or been thinking about doing it being going out on my own and being an entrepreneur for a long time. But, and obviously I took, I'd say, a pragmatic approach and tried to kind of do the analyses on risk and costs and all of that. But my wife, who's probably the eighth wonder of the world, ultimately gave me the encouragement, like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You go out there, you do it, you fail, you come back, practice law, or go do something else. And that was in 2012. We started the business, or created the entity in 2011, but actually started the business in 2012. My brother joined me very shortly thereafter, and I'd say that's for sure the most transformative part of my career.
I love that. And since we were talking about your wife, there's a quote that you mentioned in your book, and it was a mentor of yours that stated, choose your business partners just as carefully as you choose your spouse. And I love that, because I think that's where a lot of us goof up, so I think that's really powerful. So do you have any words of advice?
That's, I think, a very important one. And let's see, Jerry Kent, good friend, mentor, and then became a business partner of mine, is the one that passed that wisdom down to me. And Howard Wood, who was kind of his mentor when Jerry was starting out his career at Arthur Andersen, I think is who relayed that to Jerry. By the time I heard it, I had already married Ashley. But what that did is essentially made it clear that that bar is never going to be exceeded.
I love that.
That is awesome. Interesting, though, because being in founding situations with other founders, there's a lot of dynamics that go into that. And you talk about needing to balance out, are you the right fit? And then even beyond that, maintaining that relationship and being up on each other's kind of intentions and drive. Because I've seen a couple of companies personally go completely, different directions because of the leadership team not staying in sync. And it's pretty interesting. It's a
for
really
sure.
Good quote.
Yeah. And you all talked earlier about authenticity and transparency. And the additional quality I would add is empathy. And I think those three characteristics or traits are super critical to a very good marriage and a very good business partnership. So,
yeah. And some of the characteristics that I would describe you is you have grit, you have persistence, and you have resiliency. I mean, you've started over 5 different businesses. Is that correct?
6 as of last week.
Oh, love it. And what does Greenleaf Capital mean for those that don't know you?
Great. So Greenleaf is actually the name of the street I grew up on. And so the entity actually was called Smith Birnbaum Smith, or SBS Capital Partners. We created that probably maybe in high school, because my neighbor, also kind of an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. We were always thinking of what's a business we can get into, what's a business to buy. And then, but when I ultimately started it, changed the name to Greenleaf, primarily because it was a street all 3 of us grew up on. But then when you think about it, green, nurturing, creating, I don't know if that has any.
No, I believe in the color stuff, because we've chosen green for several things because it means hope. That's another one that it means. So I do like Greenleaf. It sounds very, positive, and I like the name. I think it sounds great. It's less lawyer-ish, by the way, than the other one.
And Chip, you've held Greenleaf open as a holding company and an overall company that you still use and operate under, even with the new business that you started up last week, or are they completely separate?
Yeah, great question. Open. So today I view Greenleaf as kind of an investment and management business of private investments. So we help create, start, and invest in privately held businesses. And then we also generally play a pretty active role in managing those investments, providing day-to-day CEO, CFO type services in many of them. we do some passive kind of minority investments where we're just providing some capital and maybe some board level input, but on the majority of those investments, we're actively involved in managing.
So running 6 businesses, father, husband, what kind of balance do you have? How do you do all that?
You're giving me too much credit. The amazing team that's really running the businesses. Somehow I'm trying to keep them together and keep everybody aligned in terms of the direction that we're going and philosophically what's important to us as an organization. And again, talked about transparency, accountability, empathy. And I'd like to tout our primary focus on customer experience and culture. And then so the team really is doing and carrying that out. I'm just there to kind of reinforce the message. So I'm not sure that I'm balanced, but I'm able to, spend a lot of time and work in those businesses, but more importantly, spend a lot of time with my wife and now 8-year-old daughter.
Yeah, which is really important. That's awesome.
The most important.
Absolutely. Family always comes first. That's always my mantra. So, yeah. Cool.
And that came up for you in 2018, becoming a parent. Is that correct?
Yeah. May 8th, 2017. Yeah.
17.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was, I wouldn't say a surprise, but we pivoted in our marriage. We've been married 18 years. So we were married 10 when our daughter came along, Hunter Sienna Smith.
Aw, that's
and
sweet.
I mean, what that did 100% changed my perspective on everything. And I would say all of the businesses, within 30 minutes, there was 8-week paid paternity leave for everybody.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And really just changed solidified a different outlook in terms of what's important.
Kind of like the parallel to being an astronaut and having that view from
perspective.
above.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool.
So when you're talking about your journey, I mean, obviously you're extremely driven, you're high energy, you're an entrepreneur, you have resiliency. What are some of those failures that you've experienced?
How much time do we have?
Well, just give us a teaser, okay?
Let's start with one.
I had a lot. So starting ATIS, which was a business that we started from scratch. I would remember being in the basement of a townhome here in Kirkwood, created the LLC, which I had done some of that practicing law, but none of us had ever created a true operating businesses. And that went nothing like we expected or thought. We were all excited. We had, spent a year and a half kind of planning and lining up a team, and we launched January 1st of 2013. But before the end of January, we found ourselves in litigation with a $4 billion French conglomerate, and we were a very thinly capitalized, not resourced organization. Messed up payroll also that month. So I had to for sure kind of let the ego go and, raise the hand and say, hey, might need a little help here, or this is going to be a very short-lived business. Fortunately had lots of good mentors, lots of good friends, lots of supporters. Ended up, it took a year to kind of get through the litigation. We did bring in, on the payroll side, brought in a good trusted friend and business partner who kind of helped shore up some of the back office logistical administrative things that we just candidly had an oversight because had never done it before. And that was pretty early on setback, obviously, so could have completely derailed the career. But we were all kind of committed to the opportunity and the purpose and what we were going to do as an organization. So kind of pushed on through and ended up building, at the time we sold was North America's largest elevator inspection consulting and managed services business.
That is resilience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
It is.
Fierce. I mean, I can't even put words to that. That's phenomenal. Instead of shutting down and just giving up or never starting another business, you just continued and fought through. Yeah. It's phenomenal.
It is.
Well, we will be right back and we will be asking Chip more questions.
Blue info.
You've seen this. It's brand new.
with Chip Smith, who we spent the past 15 minutes talking about some of his introductions and his pivots, life lessons, and we're going to go a little deeper, whether he knows that or not. But put you on the spot here, Chip. But appreciate the context so far. You've obviously have had a very varied background, coming from education as being a lawyer, working at NASA, starting up where we left the conversation with a national elevator inspection and consulting firm. How did that even become something that's not your background? And what did it take to even put that together? Then you guys learned some valuable lessons and some back office and some legal things that you talked about. And then you had to scale that and return. So just how did that even become a thing? What was important to scale, and kind of come over those issues that you left us with at break time?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me back after break. I was surprised by that one.
We didn't kick you off the show. It's okay.
So ADIS, the evolution of that was the idea actually started over conversation over a fence with my dad and our neighbor when I was probably over in middle school. And they ended up buying an elevator inspection business from Salina Insurance Company. And I started interning there throughout high school and college. And that's kind of where I learned the industry. And the industry was evolving. It was undergoing a lot of privatization. So there were a lot of government elevator inspection programs. And for budgetary reasons, labor issues, a variety of other reasons, they started to privatize and open it up to what's called third-party private inspections. The time I was finishing up law school, my dad and his partners were in the process of selling that business. So they had it for 18 or 19 years. And I was like, hey, I'm about to come out of school. I've always wanted to have my own business. Let's not sell this. But they'd had it for a long time, and a big company came calling. So they ended up selling it. So I, on my way and practiced law and did some other things for half a dozen years, ran into a few people that I used to work with at that company. And I asked how they were doing. And they said, we're miserable. The culture has changed. They feel like the customer experience has changed. And really at that time, they were the only national provider of these jurisdictionally required safety inspections. So, they who had lots of failed and bad ideas over my time came up with the idea of, hey, let's create an alternative. And we're going to just focus on our people and focus on the customer experience. So immediate response from my dad and his business partners was no way. But I kept, I went on and met with, I flew around the country for a year and met with owners of very small elevator inspection companies. Never found one that kind of made sense as a platform or from a branding standpoint. So ultimately convinced my dad and his partners to back us in the startup. And again, the premise was focus on our people, and they're going to take care of our customers. And we launched to create kind of an alternative to what was then the largest inspection company in the U.S.
That's fantastic. One of the CEOs that I had joined in 2008, his mantra was focus on the customers and our people that serve, and profits will follow. Right. And I think that's very interesting. So what did that mean for the industry that you were going into? Was this groundbreaking to focus on the customer experience and culture? Was that really a big differentiator in the industry back in
So I don't know if that was the biggest difference. Certainly from a company of size that had the scale and the systems and processes to manage multi-jurisdictional elevator portfolios. It's a very high volume, high complex, there's over 200 different jurisdictions in the U.S. that regulate and govern elevator safety compliance. So there were lots of small kind of local regional players, but to get outside and handle multiple jurisdictions requires the right systems and processes that you can accurately kind of track what's going on and have kind of your system in place to keep up with inspection due dates, make sure they're being done, make sure the paperwork's filed, et cetera. Happened to be our largest competitor, who was the only one really at the time that was capable of doing that. Hadn't invested in technology since they acquired the St. Louis-based business. They took a different approach with their people and their culture. They weren't, the team did not feel like they were being supported with resources and technology. So for us, it was kind of just that one competitor. What happened was lots of their team members bought into our vision and our approach. And then the smaller companies who weren't able to kind of scale because they didn't have those processes, systems, et cetera, they wanted to be part of our story. And so we ended up acquiring 15 or 16 of those.
Interesting. Very cool. That's a great story. And So people, process, customer experience, culture, all those things came together to help you guys scale.
Yeah.
Yes. So what you mentioned that the legal issues that you came into with the European conglomerate, was that it?
Yep.
Was a big setback. What else from ATIS was a difficult situation that you had to overcome and put you guys back maybe a couple of years, or felt like it 2 steps back and 1 step forward kind of approach?
Yeah. So a few years in, the model looked like it was working, but the capitalization and profitability was not. And so it kind of it made me, unfortunately, I joined an organization at the time called Entrepreneurs Organization, which is a phenomenal place where some of my best friends now are, but where you can share experiences and get experience share from others. And so that was a great opportunity for me to share what was going on in the business, get some opinions from them, not via experience share. And they helped me kind of really dig into the model to try to confirm, are we on the right path? Are there tweaks that we should be making at a point where, candidly was sweating, making payroll every 2 weeks, ended up making some tweaks to the business model, recapitalized the business and with actually St. Louis-based family office, and ultimately put us in great shape to kind of continue the trajectory of the organization through the end of last year when we recapped it again.
I met with Jennifer from EO here in St. Louis, and she's amazing.
She's awesome.
She's awesome.
Great organization.
It's a great organization to help CEOs and just share. Yeah, EO.
Yeah. Right.
Awesome. Well, since you have so many businesses, is there any way you can kind of give us a little bit more insight about what those businesses are?
Yes. So today we have an HVAC distribution service company that my younger brother, whose background is in, he's a CPA. He's running that business, and we're here in Missouri, Illinois, Tennessee, and Texas primarily. We also have kind of a niche in manufactured housing. So we do installation service. We also have a distribution business related to manufactured housing and mobile home parks. So kind of a niche industry, but pretty awesome opportunity. We acquired that business in 2018 and have done a few add-ons since then. And then in June of 23, we bought a company here in town called R&R Sanitation, which is portable restroom, dumpster rental. And so now we're trying to kind of evaluate the business strategy, and we go site services, waste services, some combination of both, but very fragmented industry. Lots of opportunity. I have a great partner running that business, phenomenal team. And then just as of last week, we are getting back into the insurance industry. We were involved with a couple of insurance agencies back in 2012 to 2016. It's called Centered Insurance Partners, and it's going to be a full service property and casualty insurance brokerage, risk management, consulting, and employee benefits firm.
So it's interesting, right? So diverse, the background and all the different paths. So how do you find the right team members? And obviously culture is huge.
Great question. And what I found in my transition from practicing law, investment banking into entrepreneurship is you don't necessarily need to create something, although we have done quite a bit of business model innovation, but you can just take something that's already being done and just do it better. And so we like to think that we treat our team members better than most. And that's having my daughter certainly changed that perspective. And I'd have a very maybe different, at least to some, perspective and outlook on what's important in business. And big subscriber of conscious capitalism and truly human leadership. Truman leadership is here in town, Bob Chapman, but just making sure we find, similarly aligned people, transparency, authenticity, and empathy. And those are kind of cornerstones to everything that we're doing.
I love that conscious capital approach. In 2012, with St. Charles Capital out of Denver, I was part of an M&A roll-up strategy, and they introduced me to a conscious capital scorecard, kind of a 10-point rubric on how do you score these things? And it went down to culture and people and, stuff. You're like, well, this is a financial deal. Like, let's just make this happen, right? We can scale it. We can grow it. And I guarantee you 2 or 3 of those points on the conscious capital scorecard that were ignored actually created the breakup of the M&A 2 years later that we were tied to. Super interesting. And
I love it.
Don't pay attention to those things. It absolutely is the nail in the coffin sometimes.
And I love that you have this background in so many diverse things that you don't grow up saying, I want to do elevator inspection. Like it's a different mindset, right? And it's funny. There's a movie, Robots. Of course, if you have kids, you've maybe seen it. it's see a need, fill a need. It doesn't have to be a brand new concept. You saw the gaps and you're like, we can make this better. And I love that idea. You can see these gaps, whether they're in existing businesses or new businesses, and you can create something that's successful. So that's pretty cool.
And if you ain't first, you're last, right? Ricky Bobby. It seems like every one of your businesses, you're like, well, I can do it better and I'm going to treat the people better.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And that's probably why you've been first.
And I can see why you would want to introduce him to Brad Burns. They
Yeah,
said
'cause the holding
very
company,
similar.
yeah,
and there's
energies,
So many
yeah.
different things that you
Mhm.
have a different part of your brain than I think most people have, because that's a lot to juggle. You're going from one thing to the next constantly.
Ask my wife. Definitely. I for sure have a very different brain.
Yeah. So speaking of your wife, let's touch on that for a second. What are the characteristics that she, has that help you be so successful?
Oh man. So my wife is a prosecuting attorney here in St. Louis County, and she primarily is, I think right now she's running sex crimes and homicide. And so, I mean, and how, especially now that we have a daughter, how she does that kind of work, I don't know, but she is like one of the strongest ladies that I know. And she's also one of the most understanding and forgiving. And like, she helps me continue to realize and get grounded that people aren't perfect. I'm talking about me here.
Mm-hmm.
People make a lot of mistakes, but they can still be a good person and be deserving of love, of employment, of whatever, kind of whatever we're talking about there. And so, and she consistently reminds me that a lot of the stuff that, you maybe are striving for in career and in professionalism at the end of the day aren't very important. And she's like, honey, go try it, do it, whatever. If it doesn't work out, we still have each other and we'll go figure it out. So, like I said, she really is like the eighth wonder.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Pretty lucky.
Well,
How much did she pay you for that one?
Oh, stop.
I think you better nominate her. I want to interview her.
Yes. Is she listening right now?
Probably not.
Okay.
And speaking before how you have that huge 10,000-foot view of things, what she obviously is managing and dealing with her job, those are really serious issues. And what we all have here, so to speak, we have a privileged life to tackle some big problems, maybe make some money along the way, but she's dealing with people that are going through some traumatic experiences, and it helps frame things for sure.
Yep.
What was important is what some of these other people
definitely
are going through. And Jennifer just had a panelist. Who was the nonprofit that they help people that have been through that are incarceration, et cetera?
Oh yeah, April Foster. She is with Keyway Center. I'm like, I've been to their gala. What is it called? Yeah, April Foster. She helps those women who are coming out of incarceration get reacclimated, because generally they leave with just the clothes on their back. And to get a fresh start, you really need support.
So it might not be a bad.
Yeah, I would love that connection.
Yeah, for sure.
It helps, with that.
She's a grit member. So yeah.
Yeah, it would be an
Would love
interesting
that.
connection. So yeah. All right, back to some of the personal stuff. Let's talk about your daughter and what you see in her future, or how you think you and your wife have influenced her. Is she leaning one way or another because she's dealing with an entrepreneur and then she's got prosecuting?
She's 8 and she started up 3 businesses already.
She says,
Dad will invest. Let's go.
Fortunately, she looks like my wife, who is beautiful. But what's scary is that I see some of my personality in her, and that is that's exactly what I didn't want. That's a recipe for danger and lots of trouble down the road.
Yeah.
But she's so sweet. We put her in pretty much every sport we can think of to try, but she's kind of gravitated towards arts and crafts. She loves reading. She loves writing. She just wrote me the most sweetest, amazing note last night. She is sticking with tennis. I think she'd be a fantastic gymnast. But her career aspiration today is she wants to be a professional dressage rider. So if we got her pony, she got it big into horses a year ago. So she has her own pony now, and she's out riding Jack, the 17-year-old spunky. He's got some personality.
Yeah.
And that's where she likes to spend her time.
I love that you're incorporating the diversity, letting her try everything to really figure out what she likes.
Yeah.
So
we feel that's important too. We've done that with our boys. None of them have taken up horse riding. We just have the one that works at a stable.
Takes care of horses.
Yeah, you gotta have all pieces
Mine,
of the puzzle, right?
Power horse,
Yeah.
ripping it.
Yeah.
Were you gonna say something?
Well, I was gonna say, speaking of horse, so my wife and daughter, I don't know why I'm saying this, but they both got a horse, and so I decided, horses are wild animals that can kind of act a little, do things you don't want them to do. So I decided to buy the mechanical horses back in April. Bought myself a off-road motorcycle.
Good for
Oh.
you.
At 46, I figure it's a good time to start a motocross career.
Yes.
Probably.
Do
So
that.
yeah, so I went out to Big Charles Motorsports, bought the bike, bought the gear, went out to St. Anne with my good buddy and got on that motorcycle. And within 6 minutes, I'd never even heard this term before, but I whiskey throttled into the fence. So if anyone knows what a whiskey throttle is, that's what I did.
I've done that on a Harley.
I think
Seriously?
you have a partner
Fortunately, I
in
only
crime.
broke one rib.
Oh, you did actually.
I did break a rib, but it could have been a
Oh.
lot worse. But anyway, so
Yeah.
Wow.
Mike
My-
walked
not very
away
smart.
with a scar right
Yeah.
there.
I went through a fence and the wrought iron went right up through the
Just
top
left
of
it.
my
Yeah,
glasses
lucky
and
you.
here
Ooh.
almost went into my eye. But I
Yikes.
worked for Harley for 6 years as a consultant, and so I was destined to get a Harley and got one when I was 40 and
Yeah.
whiskey throttled into a fence. So
Do you still have it?
no,
Okay.
we sold it for to go in on a ski boat for the kids.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So
I taught my middle how to drive a mini chopper, and I've had this thing since I was 19. But
wow.
my horror story was I bit the dust and fell over the handlebars, and I did it in front of kids with gravel, and it was really sad.
Probably traumatic, a little bit.
I was like,
traumatic.
I don't think those kids are ever going to want to go riding.
Wow.
Yeah.
Chip, let's do one real serious business question for you before we conclude here in a little bit. So you're in a multitude of different businesses. You're in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. You're national. What are the biggest trends that you're watching, either in your business sectors or as an entrepreneur, that you think are going to change the business world in the next 5 years? You can think about it.
Okay.
We'll
No, that's
give
a
you
great,
like a little-
there's so much going on right now and so much, in my opinion, change and even more uncertainty, what is coming. But a trend that I've really grabbed onto that I came aware of a couple of years ago is there's a nonprofit group. And it was started by a big private equity firm, in fact, maybe the biggest private equity firm, KKR, gentleman by the name of Pete Stavros. And it's all about kind of fostering economic well-being and creating thriving workplaces through broad employee-based ownership. And I saw this CBS morning special on it and what it has done for thousands of workers. I think they've already created $8 billion of wealth for employees. $1 billion of that has been realized, so they still have some realizations. But I think their objective is to create somewhere like 20 billion of wealth over the next handful of years. And I'm just a big believer in that. So super excited to be rolling that out with our new insurance brokerage, Centered Insurance Partners.
Yep.
I've pushed it to, we did a recapitalization with a large St. Louis based private equity company late last year. Very coincidental timing in terms of when I first made the introduction and kind of made them aware of this organization. But I think that, and you look at that and Bob Chapman's truly human leadership and conscious capitalism. And like, I just feel like we're on the very early very early days of what business can do for kind of the broader base of humans, really.
That's super interesting. And it's not an ESOP. It's different than, call it a 401k, so to speak. And what are the differences in those two aspects, just for our listeners?
Yeah. So it's not an ESOP, which oftentimes can be somewhat more challenging because there's lots of regulatory requirements and logistical problems and just some restrictions that make it more complicated and hard for everyone to do. So the way ownership works is set it up. It's just kind of an equity participation plan. So it can be a variety of different legal structures. And I just got access to some of the materials. So we're still kind of working on rolling ours out, but lots of flexibility. I think it can be, they say it should be a decent sized business, just so that the effort that goes into a lot of the kind of coaching, and because there's a mentality that needs to be kind of cultivated and fostered in the work environment. So it needs to kind of make sense from that level, but lots of flexibility and doing some great things.
Super interesting. Well, Chip, how can people get a hold of you if they want to contact you or one of your companies? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Assuming it's just a bad review for some of the things here, just you can send an email to Chip. Chip at greenleafcp.com is my email. Or I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff.
Or scan his QR code in his chapter because you're going to want to read about him.
Oh,
There
that's
you
right.
go.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I've learned a lot. The world is your playground. Like, I love the whole NASA thing and coming back down to earth, so to speak. You've turn a lot of different opportunities into viable businesses. So wish you the best of luck with the new one. That sounds fascinating.
Thank you.
And an opportunity not just for you, but for many others out there in the workplace. Next week, we are actually going to feature a special 2-part interview. We are going to have Dr. Lynette Madison and Taryn Pulliam from Covenant House, Missouri. They are tackling the problem of homelessness, youth homelessness in our area. So it's a very serious topic, and we're excited to highlight the good work that they are doing. Lynette, this will be her first time here, but Taryn's been on before.
Yeah, she was on the first kickoff.
episode.
Yes,
Yeah.
with Gadalnet. She was
yeah.
with that trio of wonderful ladies who are huge Grit supporters as well, because I see them a lot at your
Yeah,
events.
they're amazing.
Yeah.
And Taryn has slept out in the cold
Yes.
weather to raise money for this organization. She's extremely passionate about it. She's on the board. And Lynette, I saw her at the United Way Derby event. She's an amazing woman too. So those two are going to be really interesting powerhouse show.
Yeah, I'm excited to meet. I think she calls her, what does she call her? Dr. M or something. Taryn calls her something different. So I'm excited to meet her and then see Taryn again. I saw her recently at one of your events, and she's great. And she did talk about how she slept outside and
Cold temperatures.
Cold.
And it does this to show her son, like, what
Right.
life could look like. So work hard.
Right. And in the second half of the show, we're super excited to include Suleiman Alisgarli. It's a mouthful. You're gonna have to practice that one, Jennifer. From Karma.
Yikes.
Call him Sully.
Yeah.
He's kind of this young, aspiring entrepreneur. He's only in his 20s. He actually went to elementary school, middle school, and high school with our son. His company called Karma, he started with his brother. It's a Y Combinator backed company. So they've already raised like $10 million. And they're trying to expand not only in this marketplace, but they have locations in San Francisco and throughout. And basically they help service fleets of vehicles. Woodard is a big company or client of theirs, Clayco, et cetera. So busy show next week. We're excited to welcome them all to the show. And thanks again, Chip, for being with us today.
Yes, thank you, Chip.
No, thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate it. Definitely a
Appreciate
neat
it.
experience.
You have been listening to Elevate and Lead on the Lou Information Station. We will see you next week. Thank you so much.